Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for Parent University as we discuss the ways AI is changing the world our students live and learn in. This evening, Brooke Falck will present AI's pros and cons. Brooke Falck has been with Indian Prairie School District 204 for 11 years. She began her career as a third grade teacher at Peterson Elementary. She now works as an instructional specialist of equity and innovation, where she supports the integration of technology and equitable approaches into teaching and learning practices across our district. At the end of the presentation, a panel of experts will answer questions submitted through the chat. Please welcome Brooke.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. It's great to be with you all tonight. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers we'll get to hear from later on in the session. But before I get started, I want to let you all know if you'd like to follow along or if you'd like to access this presentation and the resources we'll be sharing later, you can find the complete slide deck at bit.ly/204 Parent University. It is up at the top, and I'm going to add it to our chat as well for easy access. All right, so once again, that is bit.ly/204 capital P parent, capital U university, if you'd like to follow along or get access to the slide deck. Alrighty, so to get started this evening, I'd like to begin with this powerful statement from Manish V, and that is, artificial intelligence is not science fiction anymore, it's infrastructure. So AI isn't this futurist prediction, it is our current reality. And though AI has been around for about 60 or 70 years or so, it has existed in our everyday for a while now, whether it's through your Alexa or Google Home, your personalized experiences through there, or through your streaming platforms that recommend media and content based on your preferences. It has been in our world for a while. But if you think back to November 2022, when OpenAI, which is ChatGPT's AI model, rolled out to the public, that's when we really experienced this significant shift, right? So because of this, it has become essential for all of us to understand this technology. And there is evidence of this need already. So according to the World Economic Forum Skills Report, technological literacy was one of the core skills of 2025. And by 2030, AI and big data are projected to be the fastest growing skills. Now, although technological skills are growing rapidly, it's those human-centric skills, such as creative thinking and resilience and flexibility and agility, that are deemed some of the most crucial. So in District 204 specifically, to address this, our district is approaching AI with intention, clarity, and a commitment to learning, to relationships, and to responsible decision-making that aligns to our portrait of a graduate. So let's take a moment to talk about how this translates to the classroom by diving into some of the opportunities AI presents for enhancing the educational experience. So first, personalized learning. AI has the ability to adapt to each student's unique pace, learning style, and this means it provides tailored challenges or remedial support exactly where each student needs it. Another opportunity we have with AI in education is enhanced accessibility. Tools like real-time translation and voice to text are game changers in the classroom. They ensure students with disabilities or language barriers have equal access to their learning materials. Then lastly is tutoring and homework support, where interactive AI systems can act like 24/7 learning coaches, which provides homework assistance to help students work through difficult concepts at home. As we embrace the opportunities that we have with AI, it's important that we also are clear-eyed about the risks we must navigate with caution. When it comes to data privacy and security, protecting student information is paramount. So, AI systems must comply with strict data security standards to prevent the misuse of records. With over reliance, there is a real risk that students may depend too heavily on AI for answers, which could potentially hinder their development of essential critical thinking skills. And then lastly, we have AI bias and misinformation. So essentially, AI is trained on human created data. And as a result, AI models can sometimes reflect societal biases or provide incorrect information and present it in a factual way, which are called hallucinations. So this requires careful human vetting of all AI outputs. Now, within our district, to guide thoughtful and responsible use, we have established several guiding principles for AI use for our students. So, first and foremost is the human rule. We want to have our students think about if AI replaces your own thinking, creativity, or puts privacy at risk, that it should not be used at all. So, to help enforce this, we ask students to apply 3 checks and 1 final test. So, one of those checks is the voice check. This is to maintain student voice, where we have students ask themselves, does this output sound like me? And did the core idea start with me? Then we have the fact check, which is where they'd ask, did I verify all of this information with a vetted, trusted source? And then we have the thinking check. What did they change in the AI's output, and why did they change that? And why did that change belong in their work? So that we are helping them to practice the metacognitive skills when interacting with AI. Then our overall goal is the why test. We have students ask, can you explain every choice you made and why it belongs in your work? And overall, we just want students to stay in charge and maintain autonomy in knowing their why when interacting with AI. So these guiding principles for our students translate into clear rules for AI use. And we broke it down to 4. So first is confirm permission. As every assignment has different guidelines for AI usage, students should always check with their teachers before using AI on an assignment. We also want to encourage our students to evaluate those outputs. They must double check every fact and use secondary sources to catch any of those hallucinations or biases, as mentioned earlier. Another important component is being the human in the loop, keeping in mind that AI should enhance and not replace their thinking. The student is always responsible for the final product. And then lastly, maintain privacy. And this is crucial. Never share personal details like names, addresses, or birthdays with an AI tool to ensure that that privacy is kept. Now, where do the parents and guardians fit in? Well, your role as parents and guardians is indispensable in fostering responsible AI use. And here are 4 ways you can engage with your student to help support them. So, first and foremost is to be a co learner. We're all onboarding to AI together, but it's not something that you need to be an expert on when discussing with your student. So, try something like planning a family meal or weekend trip with AI to learn its quirks side by side and explore that together. Another component would be asking questions. Shift the homework conversation from did you finish to did you use any tools to brainstorm? Or how did you verify the answers it gave you? It's a great way to encourage reflection as students are using AI. Another key component would be monitoring usage. Clearly separate personal creative exploration from academic use, where shortcuts can bypass critical cognitive development for our students. And then lastly, encourage digital literacy. Digital literacy is a mandatory skill for students in the 21st century. So discuss the differences between AI tools and human expertise at the dinner table for an easy opportunity. So to help your students, we've gathered a collection of fantastic resources. These include IPSD specific documents like the Family Guide to AI in 204, an AI in 204 overview, and also our AI playbook, as well as guides from trusted external partners like AI for Education, Common Sense Media, and Google for Education. A couple of our panelists here have done work with Common Sense Media and with Google for Education. So we know that these are fantastic resources to rely on for sure. All right, so the most exciting part of the evening, in my opinion, we've covered the pros and cons and our guiding principles with AI in education. So now we're going to transition to our discussion panel. And I'm honored to introduce our incredible group of experts who bring diverse perspectives from the classroom way to the tech industry. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So we'll start left to right, starting with Tyler Hunt. Go ahead, you can introduce yourself, your role, and just a snippet of the work that you do that involves AI.
Hello, my name is Tyler Hunt. I am a fifth grade teacher here in 204. I teach at Peterson Elementary School. Some of the work that I do in AI, this title seems so like self-aggrandizing, but I always think the work that I do with AI in education, it can only be like validated with teaching. So teacher is my most important role. But I currently work with Teach Plus Illinois, nonprofit education teacher leadership group. And we just kind of follow AI in education. We were able to create one of the first laws in the state of Illinois, SB 1920, that requires the Illinois State Board of Education to create some guidelines about AI in K-12 education. And those should be out by July 2026, so a few months. And that's basically it.
Thanks, Tyler. Guggen, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Guggen. I graduated from NEQA last year. I was in Miss Falk's third grade class a while back. I'm from Naperville, Illinois, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at SolarServe AI. We are a global company where we use drones and AI to detect deficiencies on solar projects for essentially for maintenance and installation purposes as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Guggen. Jen, please introduce yourself.
I would love to. Thanks for having me, Brooke and team. Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Brown. I'm a senior program manager at Google. I'm the Google for Education team. In my previous life, I was a classroom teacher in Des Plaines District 62. I taught first grade and fifth grade during my tenure before I moved into the technology space, and I've been at Google for about 5 years. In my role at Google, I work with about 100 school districts across the North, Central, and West regions of the United States, and I work with them to help conduct translational research on ed tech topics such as AI. We also can dig into other things too, like productivity suites, STEM, etc. And I'm here today to just provide a little bit of insight into Gemini, which is one of the Google AI tools that's available for use.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. All right, Patti.
Hi everyone, I'm Patti Ruiz. I've had the pleasure of working with Brooke for many years now. It's more than 5 years, I think, Brooke. We have worked on several National Science Foundation projects together. I am a learning scientist, although I also taught middle school and high school computer science and Spanish for 16 years prior to becoming a researcher. I am now the Director of Learning Technology Research at Digital Promise.
Fantastic. So happy to have you all here and to get some of your perspective on this topic. So, I have a question for each of our panelists here, and then we'll conclude with a couple of open-ended questions that any of our panelists are welcome to answer. All right. So, Tyler, research shows that students need to focus on complementary human skills like metacognition, creativity, and connection in the AI era. From your experience, which of these three skills do you believe is currently most undervalued in K-12 education, and how could AI tools actually be leveraged to strengthen it?
Oh boy, this one was a tough one for me, so here we go.
Okay, we
Uh,
appreciate any insight you have.
Yeah, so my current position is a elementary teacher, so I teach fifth grade. Previously I taught third grade, so again, I'm just kind of parked in the elementary era, and it may color some of my answers. But essentially, I think one of the skills that is most undervalued is definitely metacognition, right? In education, even with the young kids, I mean, 9 to 11 years old, they're just thinking of like, okay, Miss Hunt, like, what's my grade? What's my grade? All right, what's the grade? Sometimes the joy in the learning and that process is really hard for them. And I think, many middle school teachers, high school teachers, and probably college professors would agree that that's the same. A lot of students just want that final grade, and I guess thinking deeply sometimes feels like a chore when you can just get the work and get it done. But anywho, when it comes to how an AI tool could be leveraged to strengthen that, that's something that I struggle with. Struggle with a tool helping students to do like a uniquely human thing. That to me is a bit difficult, only because I work with elementary students, and there are features, depending on what type of prompt that you put into any, AI tool, you can be coached in like a metacognitive process. But again, from my experience with really young students, I don't know if that could be beneficial to them. So I don't know if I've answered all of it, but those are just some of my thoughts. Be
No,
happy to hear.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I have to say, I really love how you phrased the finding the joy in skills such as metacognition, because there is joy in that. And that's part of some of those sought out skills for 2030 is that curiosity and that desire for lifelong learning. So I think having that mindset as a teacher is so valuable. And we appreciate that about you. So thank you. All right, Guggen. By the way, I think it's great you still call me Miss Falk. You probably can't call me Brooke. It probably feels weird, huh?
Yeah, it feels
You're a
weird.
great teacher. Always Miss Falk.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right, so Guggen, your question. The World Economic Forum projects a massive transformation in operations due to AI by 2030. What emerging AI adjacent job types do you see growing most rapidly in your sector? And how should K 12 curriculum respond to prepare students for these roles?
Yeah. So I think I would take it back to kind of when I was in school from like, from elementary school to high school. Um, obviously that was probably about 10 years ago. So the technology that we have today wasn't really popular back then. So when we're going back to like a learning curriculum in school, it was really just kind of focusing on what was in that present time and not really looking ahead to the future. And that kind of changed when I was in high school. I was in junior year when I got involved with this company, and I ended up, I founded it with someone else, and it's grown to what it is today. But um, I think the idea of how we got started and kind of being in this industry didn't really come from a K-12 education. It kind of came from my own self-education, like researching on Google or on YouTube on the different types of careers and opportunities that are available. So, especially in our work where we're using drone technology and we're using an AI software, that stuff isn't taught in schools. I think the most I got taught about that was actually my senior year when I was taking aerospace engineering. And the reason why was because my teacher, Mr. Tegmeyer, he was an aerospace engineer. He had a lot of experience in drones and airplanes. And like he kind of, I think he was the only person that kind of understood where I was going with what I was doing. So I think the biggest thing that the K-12 curriculum can probably respond to prepare people is kind of, um, I would say, presenting the different opportunities there are. Like, if it's drones or it's becoming a pilot or any type of, niche career, if you give students the ability to kind of see that that's out there and you give them like a class, like, I don't know, like aerospace engineering is a good one, or like drone engineering, or something that these are niche careers because I can tell you, I hired a couple people a couple weeks ago become engineers for us, and a lot of them they don't have degrees actually because they understand the field that we're in. They understand being technical enough to essentially be taught that a degree didn't really teach them how to become a drone operator. They learned that from being out in the field. So I think that if you give the opportunity to kind of open up to what the different opportunities are out there and kind of how AI turns into that, um, I think it can broaden the students' career choices for sure, and honestly, the whole curriculum.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Um, a lot of great things floating through my head with your response. But what I'm hearing is that exposure is extremely valuable, especially, I mean, in the AI landscape, it is rapidly increasing. And I mean, I'm sure when you were in my third grade class, you had no idea that you'd end up in a career that relates to
Oh
AI.
no.
So it's something that's growing exponentially and it's not slowing down anytime soon. So I think that self-exploration and research into that opportunities, but also being presented within the education is very vital. And then that kind of pops some inspiration, such as it did for you, where you started doing your own research and really found your niche and everything. So thank you for sharing that. All right, Jen. So, your question as a senior program manager, what is the process Google uses to ensure its generative AI tools like Gemini adhere to the strict K 12 data privacy requirements? And how can parents be assured that student data is protected from product training?
This is such a good question. I'm really, really happy that this is the one that you posed to me, Brooke. So I'm going to kind of just dig a little bit into the difference between accessing Google AI with a personal Gmail versus with a district Indian Prairie 204 account. If you, and this could be any child 13 and up and adults as well, if you are accessing any of our Google AI tools like Gemini, which you can get to by going to gemini.google.com, if you go there with your personal Gmail, that AI is able to train itself on the data that you put into it. There are human reviewers that can review that data and they're going to use it to train the models. However, if you access that same tool, but now you're doing it with an Indian Prairie School District 204 account, it is a totally different ballgame. When you access it with a K-12 district account, like the one that students have in 204, there are data protections that are incredibly rigorous that are put into place. For example, the data is not used to train the AI or any large language models. The data is not shared with other users or organizations. We don't use that data for advertising. The district owns and controls that data, not Google. And all that data is encrypted at rest and in transit by default. Because of these rigorous restrictions that we have when someone is accessing our Google AI tools with a K-12 district account, we can say that Gemini is in compliance with a number of industry regulations, which includes COPA, FERPA. If the district has a BAA agreement with Google, we are also HIPAA compliant, so medical data is secure as well. And also the legislation SOPA in Illinois, which is student data privacy regulations that exist in the state. So we can confidently say that we are in compliance with all of those regulations. Gemini, you can think of it basically as the same type of data privacy as you're used to with Google Drive, with Google Docs. just how students are inputting information into docs, slide decks, spreadsheets, saving them in their drive every day. Gemini and our other tool, Notebook LM, are on the same tier of what we call a core service and follow the same terms of service as Google Drive, Google Docs, etc. So very secure, very locked down when you are using your district account. It's a different story if you're using your Gmail. So just be aware anytime you're using a Google AI tool to make sure that you're using it with your district account.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. I'm sure a lot of our parents and guardians are taking a sigh of relief just to hear from you specifically on all the protections in place when using Google, and your work with Google for Education is incredible. So glad to have you share that. And a fantastic reminder, ensuring that our students are using their district accounts when they are interacting with these platforms to ensure that those safety and guardrails are in place. So thank you very much, Jen. All right, Patty. Quick plug, Patty worked on the Common Sense Parent Toolkit. That's one of the resources linked in the slide deck. I know some of you joined a little late, so I will put that link in the chat, but she did a lot of work there. It's a fantastic resource, fantastic toolkit. So shout out to Patty. Patty, your question is, so Digital Promise, the company that you work for, is involved in international AI literacy efforts. What is one policy approach or framework being used globally that U.S. districts are currently overlooking but should implement to support family guidance on AI?
Thank you, Brooke. So there's a lot of work happening in the international space right now, and I am going to drop two additional links in chat. You may have these in the other resources already, but I'm going to frame my response based on the work that I've done. So at Digital Promise, we have an AI literacy framework. Folks like Brooke informed our original AI literacy framework that we developed in 2023, 24, and published in 2024. Based on that work, I was invited to participate in the OECD European Union development of this updated AI literacy framework. This work was led by Teach AI, so you all may have seen early versions of this. We're getting ready to publish the final version in, I believe it's the second week of May. So check back on that document once the final version is published, because there is currently a version on the website, but it's not the final version. This is an AI literacy framework that we worked very hard on. And one of the things that I really appreciate is how it explicitly includes parents, families, and caregivers as an essential partner in navigating the daily presence of AI, because we heard from Jen just now that school issued tools have certain guidelines and guardrails, but AI is all around us, right? And your children are interacting with these tools at home. They are what we call an arrival technology. And so we want to make sure that parents, families, and caregivers are active in helping learners, students, talk through these risks of unregulated AI use, right? We want parents, families, and caregivers to be trusted adults and be able to help guide students around responsible use of these AI systems and tools. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the guidance that will be published early next month. And I hope everyone returns to the website. What's currently published there is a draft version of the guidance. But the final version of the guidance, which will be published in May, is what will be informing the PISA standardized test. The 2029 version will have AI literacy as part of it. So really internationally, we're seeing a focus on how parents and families can be trusted guides who facilitate the boundary setting and help students identify responsible uses of these technologies. So that really is something I'm excited about. And we also know that you all need very concrete examples of what that looks like. And so we developed some concrete examples in this updated version of the AI literacy framework.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here, folks. We got really great stuff coming our way. Can't wait to dig into all of those resources. Patty, I love how you highlighted just the importance and the value of simply having conversations with our students about AI, getting the conversation going. At one of our AI task force meetings, one of our participants described the rollout of AI. It's like trying to learn how to drive yourself while also teaching your child how to drive. We're all navigating this together, and it truly is a partnership between all of those that are involved. So very, very much looking forward to checking out these resources. Thank you so much.
Exactly, Brooke. It is a partnership. We're all learning at the same time. And so it's nice that we can be in conversation together.
Thanks so much. All right, so I have a couple more questions for our panelists. We'll start with the first one, and feel free to jump in as you'd like. So the first question is, given the rapid pace of change and headlines about AI, what is the most important message you can share with parents to move the conversation away from fear and toward thoughtful, informed engagement with AI education?
I'm happy to kick it off, Brooke.
All righty, Jen, go for it.
So there definitely is fear, but I always like to kind of remember that fear and excitement are very similar emotions. Like if you think about like going up a roller coaster, I find myself really excited about the possibilities of generative AI in the hands of students for a variety of reasons, because I believe that it's technology that makes learning more accessible for all users. So students who at one point maybe were disorganized and needed help with executive functioning skills, they now have access to tools that can help create study plans for them, help create learning guides, all by using just natural language prompts. There is so much that's changing so rapidly, but we don't have to feel that we're running on the treadmill trying to keep up with it all. You can go at your own pace. Just because the product is changing a mile a minute, you can just dip one toe in the water and move at your own pace. Don't feel the need to have to keep up with the Joneses and be using every bell and whistle. Take step by step approaches when you're using AI. I threw some resources in the chat to kind of help guide that conversation. There's an AI literacy guide for students. Students can kind of take a step back, slow down, think about the principles of using AI, think about things like academic integrity. It's a great conversation because truly, this is the biggest technological shift we're going to see in our lifetimes. It's going to impact globally all industries. It's something, and that's not just fluff from me, that's from the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, which I highly recommend folks taking a peek at. But with this big change, we can still take a breath, move at our own pace, and just know that the possibilities that we have now to enrich students' lives are endless.
Such a great reminder, Jen, about going at your own pace. There could be a lot of pressure for a lot of us to try to keep up, but it is moving so rapidly. And as you said, this is the biggest technological shift that we will experience in our lifetime. So it's an important reminder to give yourself grace and to take it at the pace that's most comfortable for you. Any of our other panelists would like to jump in on that first question?
I think about learning a lot as a learning scientist. And one thing for me when I see this rapid pace of change and all these headlines, one headline that stands out to me is the cognitive offloading headline, basically where we are seeing in the research that learners are trying to use these tools, actually adults as well, everyone. We're using these tools instead of thinking. And as a parent, I think one of the things that we can have conversations with children about is what makes sense to offload to a machine versus what do I need to do myself. And one of the things that sticks out to me that one of my mentors always shared with me is learning is really difficult, right? Learning requires friction. And so, if we want to continue learning, we need that friction. That friction's important. Learning is hard. And so, yes, we have this tool that can take away that difficulty, but what does that mean long term for me? And really reflecting on what's best, depending on what situation, is really a good conversation to be having at home as well as in classrooms with teachers. But that is what I keep coming back to. How do we help students make more responsible choices about when they're going to use and when they're not going to use these AI systems and tools? And again, I think that having good examples of responsible use versus not is incredibly important. And maybe Tyler and Brooke, you can talk more about what you already are doing at Indian Prairie, because I know that you already have systems in place to help students and teachers make these decisions.
A lot of great points there, Patti. I think it comes back to those human-centered skills, right? And a lot of those skills, particularly from our Portrait of a Graduate, they are translating into and manifesting in a new way as technology progresses. So that critical thinking, right, or that resilience, being able to build those skills to work through problems. And also, I think having a mind shift of seeing AI as a tool, something to use to enhance the learning or to guide, but not something to depend on completely. And I think also teaching the mindfulness behind it, and how, as you mentioned, how that can impact us long term, that forward thinking. So there's a lot of those human centered skills that need to come into play in order for us to successfully, responsibly, and safely utilize AI in our day to day, and particularly in education. Tyler, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I think you covered the classroom side. There was just another thing that I was thinking about, just concerning how parents can stay engaged. As was mentioned, AI is here. It's been here for a while, but as they say, the AI that you have now is the worst version of it that you'll ever have because it's just going to continue to evolve. But there goes that. I think parents really, you have to have a balanced diet with AI. Personally, like I read the positive things that are happening with students, but then I also have to read the negative things. I can't ignore the fact that students are completing suicides using certain technology and not necessarily tools that are used in classrooms, but that's what's happening. If it's affecting our young people outside of school, it's showing up somewhere in school. I have to look at the information. I gotta read about, data centers being built, right? We just had that big thing here in Naperville about data centers, didn't necessarily pass, but then one is being built in Aurora. I think you have to have a healthy diet of both of those so you don't have this like existential crisis of like, again, what is my brain for? What am I here for? Like, what am I doing if a tool can do all of these things? Having a healthy balance of just a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of interest, I think is good. Also, I think lots of students, they, is in fifth grade, they'll say, Miss Hunt, that's so AI. And I'll be like, well, what do you mean? And like getting them to talk about what they think AI is, I think that's really important. Just asking them, well, like, what is that? One of my kids, they generated a picture of like Homer Simpson, like riding like some motorcycle. It was really interesting. And I was like, well, why did you do that? And he's like, well, I thought it would be cool and I couldn't necessarily draw it myself. So I wanted to use the tool. Anyway, fifth grade examples, but like getting into like, why are we using these tools? What do they help us do? Do they help us become better humans? And it's not just I don't think it's just a teacher conversation. I really think it is a parent conversation as well. And then another quick thing, I'll be done. I believe ChatGPT, they like or other LLMs in general, like your prompts or whatever you feed into the machine, like it's there, it's stored. And I think just like thoughtful conversation with young people is like, all right, well, tell me about this prompt. Like when you put in, did you do this? Did you do like why were you putting that in? What did it get you? Do you feel like after putting in 75 prompts that like it made your work better? Do you feel like it caused you more stress? Just being, I guess, more inquisitive about how students interact with AI. I think that's important for parents to do.
Yeah, so a couple of things that came to mind, Tyler, with your response, which is so great, is really examining the intentionality behind it. If there is one, first of all, there should be intentionality, right? And then kind of addressing what is the intention here? Is it to entertain? Is it to explore? Is it to cause shock? So exploring that is really essential. And then also that digital literacy piece, and particularly digital wellness, right? And that's not just for our students, which they are taught K through 12 these skills, but us as a society, we have to practice digital wellness, literacy, um, and those practices just to really help us, as you said, strike that balance where we are informed, but we also maintain autonomy. So thank you very much for that. All right. Any of our panelists that didn't get to share anything before we move on to our last question? All righty. We are going to round it out with our last question here. Looking beyond immediate challenges, what is the single most transformative long-term opportunity AI presents for K-12 education that deserves concentrated investment right now? And I know the landscape is changing rapidly, so your answer today could differ, a week from now, but as it stands from your perspective.
So something that I can share, Brooke, I know when we think about AI on the Google for Education team, and we're a pretty small but mighty team within Google, we have set three pillars that we believe to be our goals that we're consistently working towards to transform K-12 education specifically. And those three goals that we have in mind is we want a TA for every teacher, we want a tutor for every student, and an assistant for every education leader. Those are really the three areas that when our engineers are building these tools out, building things into Google Classroom, those are kind of our North Star that we're always aiming for. Because the idea is we want AI to be there to assist, not just to save time, but to act as a true collaborator, to help you think of things in a way that maybe you wouldn't have thought of it before. It's really there to act as a thought partner to us. So the ability to have that thought partner with you in your pocket while you're on the go, no matter what time it is of night or day, to have that like ever ready present thought partner is just something that we think can be so valuable and impactful to students and faculty and staff and parents as well.
Absolutely. That accessibility there for them is so crucial. And, in neuroscience, a lot of processing that happens with our thinking is that we have to talk it out or, just get our ideas out and then receive feedback. And so that really adheres to meeting students where they're at to then help them be successful in the classroom and, beyond. So thank you for that, Jen. Any other thoughts, our wonderful panelists?
I have one. I
All
think
right,
this
Tyler.
one should be used with caution. I do think educators can use AI to create like more engaging learning activities, to design different things. Again, similar to what was said, using AI as a thought partner. I think that can be useful for educators. Just being as a teacher myself, sometimes, you've taught the same lesson like 6 times and you're like, okay, are we going to do shoebox dioramas again? Like, is there another way that I can do this? And, if you're putting in the standard, okay, this is the standard I have to meet, maybe I want to include some sort of social studies. Maybe I want to include a different subject. And maybe I want to do something that doesn't necessarily involve students like cutting, pasting, and gluing. Like, how can I do that? I think that's beneficial for educators, and that's worth some sort of investment. But again, I always say that even when teachers are planning lessons and they're doing things and they're using AI, one thing I caution against is sitting with the tool alone. I think there's still benefit in that human planning. So sitting down with your team or whatever PLC that you have and say, this is what I was thinking, because you all could type in the same, reimagination of a certain lesson or unit plan, and you'll all get different things depending on how that prompt is. And I think if we all sit together and like get a combination of what we're all thinking, it could be something that is new and beneficial for students.
That's awesome, Tyler. And the collaboration component, yes, AI can be seen as collaboration, but there's so much value in human collaboration. And then using AI to support that and to build on what has already been established. That's awesome. All right. Any other responses to our final question?
Along the same lines as what Tyler and you, Brooke, just said, I see AI as a tool, just like we've had tools throughout history, right? That are new on the scene. Calculators, for example, were one. AI is a little bit different, but I do think it provides us an opportunity to rethink teaching and learning to help us ensure that learners are enjoying the learning process, right? Nurture their critical thinking, creativity, and ability to care for themselves, their communities, and help teachers individualize when it makes sense and also come together with the right pedagogical approaches when needed. So really thinking about how AI can support the development of lifelong learning and be leveraged as a tool to support what teachers do best to support students continue to engage in learning and enjoying that learning process.
Absolutely. It truly is such an opportunity to take a look at where we've been, where we're at, and what we can change for the future to just make our teaching and learning processes and practices that much stronger and to really improve those experiences. Any last thoughts from our panelists?
I'd probably add on to that. I'd probably say that um, when I was in school, I think it was really it was like a popular thing that like if you have a classroom with like 40 students, you have one teacher, and then you have like a lot of questions, like everyone would be stuck there raising their hand for like a good like 5, 10 minutes as the teacher's making their way around. I think that if they added like some sort of like AI kind of assistant slash tutor that can see your screen and answer your question for you, that would probably be something that would be changing the industry as well for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think it's a great opportunity for our students that maybe don't feel as comfortable reaching out for help. It gives them an opportunity to get what they need and show that they're able to solve problems independently and really take ownership of their learning. So thank you for that, Gagan. Okay. So, as we start to conclude for the evening, I just wanted to leave you with this last thought, and that AI should not happen to us, it should happen with us. So, keep in mind that you are the pilot, you are the editor, and you are the human in the loop. And parents, students, educators, globally, everyone has the power to really take the reins on AI and how it works in their life, in their day to day, and really being mindful and intentional with that onboarding there. Okay, so we do have a few extra minutes. If panelists, first of all, Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. This has been absolutely incredible. Your insights and your expertise have been so valued. We're very grateful for you making the time. If you don't mind staying on, we'll have a few minutes to have our attendees type some questions in the chat for some follow-up. So parents, guardians, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists, feel free to type them in the chat. So I see a question about sharing what the district has. So I'm going to link that. That's our ipsd.org.com/AI, which will also be linked in our slide deck. Glad to know that it was interesting to know how Gemini works on our district Chromebooks. I'm glad that that was valuable information. Right. Well, I'm not seeing any comments, so I think you guys nailed it. Thank you so much for sharing, for being here. Thank you to the attendees for being here. Once again, for taking the time out of your busy schedules. We hope that this was extremely informative and that you were able to take away at least something that will help you and your student in their journey with embedding AI into their everyday. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your night. Take care, everyone.